más a profundidad al respecto, demos la bienvenida a Mary Wilcox, consultora del US Dairy Export Council, USDC, con más de 25 años de experiencia en el sector de alimentos y agropecuario. Wilcox recibió su licenciatura en Ciencias Biológicas y su maestría en Nutrición Animal de la Universidad del Sur de Illinois Carbondale. Además, tiene una maestría en Administración de Empresas de la Universidad de Concordia de San Paul. Wilcox trabajó previamente en puestos de desarrollo de productos y negocios en Midwest Dairy Association, Protein Ingredient Technologies y Land O'Lakes. También formó parte del comité directivo del Whey Protein Research Consortium, enfocado en establecer beneficios de salud y bienestar basados en evidencia de la proteína del suero de leche. Pero antes de la intervención de la doctora Wilcox, demos la bienvenida a Paola Gutiérrez, responsable de las operaciones del USDC en Colombia.
Buenas tardes para todos. Mi nombre es Paola y represento al Consejo de Exportación de Lácteos de Estados Unidos. Antes de pasar la palabra a nuestra speaker, conferencista del día de hoy, Mary Wilcox, me gustaría brindar una breve introducción sobre nuestra organización. El Consejo de Exportación de Lácteos de Estados Unidos es una organización sin fines de lucro que representa los intereses de los exportadores de Estados Unidos, tanto de ingredientes lácteos como leche en polvo, proteínas, permeato, lactosa, whey protein, caseinatos, caseínas, como quesos de los Estados Unidos. Nuestra actividad con el USDC es exclusivamente institucional y tenemos más de 110 miembros adscritos a nuestro consejo. Nuestra sede está ubicada en Arlington y en esta oportunidad contamos con la presencia de Keith Meyer, quien es nuestro Marketing Manager Global de nuestra área Marketing Manager Ingredients Marketing. El USDC tiene representantes alrededor del mundo y en América del Sur, USDC es representado por River Global. Por lo anterior, les comparto mi información de contacto y de nuestra organización en caso que ustedes deseen conocer más sobre nuestras actividades y también conocer más opciones de proveedores de todo el tema de ingredientes lácteos y, por supuesto, quesos de los Estados Unidos. Me gustaría igualmente reforzar que la misión del USDC no es solamente incrementar las exportaciones de lácteos de Estados Unidos, sino mejorar el bienestar de las personas y planeta en general. Todo esto el USDC lo hace a través de un suministro sostenible, es decir, tiene la capacidad de satisfacer a todos los consumidores y clientes dependiendo cuál sea su necesidad de producto. Igualmente está comprometido con crear relaciones a largo plazo y estables con sus clientes y busca que ustedes puedan crear innovaciones y negocios exitosos a partir de las especificaciones de sus productos. Estados Unidos es el más grande productor de leche de vaca e invierte constantemente en estudios, investigación, equipos para la producción de ingredientes lácteos. Todo esto le permite tener un diverso portafolio que incluye leche en polvo, permeato, MPC, WPC, lactosa, ingredientes de suero, entre otros. En el gráfico de la diapositiva pueden observar el volumen en toneladas métricas de estos ingredientes exportados en 2021. De igual forma, es muy importante mencionar que la industria de Estados Unidos está muy comprometida con la sustentabilidad, desde los productores de leche hasta los productores de los procesadores de ingredientes lácteos. Estados Unidos se compromete con la meta de neutralidad en carbono para el 2050. Para finalizar, me gustaría dar la bienvenida a Mary Wilcox. Ella nos acompaña en esta ocasión como consultora del USDEC y tiene más de 25 años de experiencia en investigación y desarrollo en la industria de alimentos y bebidas. En esta ocasión, Mary presentará una conferencia técnica sobre el universo de las proteínas lácteas, dada la tendencia global en bienestar y en salud. Bienvenida, Mary.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm so thrilled to be here. And thank you for the warm Colombian welcome. It's been wonderful. It's my first visit here, so thank you so much. Let me get this going. Okay. So just like this forest and this landscape, the protein landscape continues to grow. Each day we hear new headlines about different protein products on the market. And after a while, we're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? Which one do we choose? What do we do now? And so the purpose of my talk today specifically is to help you navigate that landscape and to give you some key things to consider and look out for, and also to explain how U.S. dairy ingredients might play a role in your next future product. When I started my career over 25 years ago, I worked on animal milk replacer and sports and clinical nutrition products. And I was very fortunate to be in the early stages of when they were doing research, not only on how to process whey, but also to understand the nutritional value. I started feeding whey protein to piglets and then went on to studies in humans and worked with the industry to fund research in that area. So it's been a passion for me for a long time. But when I first started, the sports nutrition market was very limited in the protein offerings. We had caseinate, we had soy protein, and we had hydrolyzed collagen. And it really gave me the passion to say, what else can we do? What else can we do with whey protein? Fast forward to today. It's an exciting time for protein, and I have a true passion for it. And so even though we still have milk and collagen and eggs, we also now have wheat, protein, lentils, beans, oats, all kinds of new entrants and more emerging every day. Yet one thing has not changed. You as business managers, as food formulators, as sourcing managers, have a lot of questions that you need to ask and tick off your list before you make your final formulation decisions. And that's what I want to talk a little bit about today. So as you can see, you might have questions about processing, nutrition, functionality, sensory, supply chain, sustainability, usage, versatility. All of these things factor into your decisions. So we'll take a look at each one in more detail. So proteins themselves are delicate macromolecules that have different combinations of amino acids that causes them to have certain hydrophilic and hydrophobic properties. And extreme changes in the conditions that are listed here, temperature, pH, pressure, solutes, mixing, can impact the structure. And ultimately, those changes impact the protein's ability to be soluble. For example, when you process plant proteins, many times they add salt to help solubilize the protein. Well, if done incorrectly, that salt concentration can actually cause harm and cause the protein to precipitate out of solution. Same thing holds true for extreme heating, freezing, and shear. Depending upon our process and what we're exposing our products to, it can actually change the form of the protein. Think about an egg at breakfast. A fresh egg has a certain functionality. You put it in a frying pan at 40 degrees C and heat it for an extended period of time, and it's irreversibly changed. It's not going to go back to its original form. The same thing holds true for proteins. The dairy cow herself is uniquely designed to convert insoluble particulates into soluble. 80% of what the cow eats is not digestible by humans, and she also eats many of the co-products that come off of plant-based systems, things like almond hulls and citrus pulp. She's also unique because she has 4 stomachs. The rumen itself is very special because it serves as the fermentation vessel, where she takes those microorganisms inside her rumen and it breaks down those insoluble components into protein precursors. They're then reassembled and excreted in the mammary system as that thing called milk, which is highly nutritious and highly soluble. Anything that's undigested is then excreted into the manure and then can be used as fertilizer to replenish the soil. Milk components are separated through physical means. Proteins, fats, and carbohydrates are separated through membranes based upon their molecular weight. Water is gently filtered through, and as you can see from the diagram, the permeate comes through. The advantage of this process is that the permeate streams can also be captured, concentrated, and dried into value-added ingredients, so waste is minimized. An example of this for milk and whey is milk and whey permeates. They're co-products that can be used as a source of lactose in a baked good. They can also be used in soft-serve frozen desserts, or they can be used as flavor enhancers in soups, sauces, or snacks. So processing steps are very important to understand. In 2020, there was a study commissioned to analyze and better understand the processing of a wide range of dairy and plant-based proteins, as you can see here. So when you move from flours on the left to isolates on the right, you can see that the number of steps increase as the protein levels increase. But so do the time and the processing steps required, which we'll talk through in more detail in a minute. Understanding these processing steps that the product goes through is very important when you're creating your finished product because it impacts the protein. So here's the protein processing schematic of some proteins, specifically milk, pea, rice, wheat, and chickpea. As you can see through the processes that are listed here, the red outline steps are the ones that require the use of solvents, acids, and bases. These steps are used to solubilize the proteins, but they can also diminish the solubility of the native protein and the functionality of the final product if not done correctly. So it's very important to understand and characterize any protein that you purchase. Additionally, those byproduct streams that come off of each of those steps will have to be assessed and dealt with. So here's the same schematic starting from a co-product stream. So in the case of dairy, it's whey protein, and we also have soy, almond, and so forth. Again, in this chart, you can see that dairy proteins use physical separation versus additive steps. However, concentration or isolation of the protein is common for anything coming from a co-product prior to drying. Understanding how the protein is processed is important because changes in taste, sedimentation, color, and smell may occur. For example, many plant proteins require the use of stabilizers and masking agents to make sure that the product stays in solution and has the proper flavor. These additions do add cost, and they also add to the length of your ingredient statement. So depending upon your ultimate formulation, you may want to take that into consideration. Inconsistencies in particle size and levels of protein denaturation during drying is also a key thing to pay attention to because that can also impact your color, your smell, and your taste of your finished product and how it functions in your application. So be sure that you set a specification and you continue to monitor your product to make sure you deliver in your finished product. So now let's talk about nutrition. Oops, didn't go. Hold on. There it go. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so protein quality matters from childhood all the way until our golden years. It plays an integral role in the support of our body and our structure, the regulation of our tissue and our organs. And the body can make its own protein, but only if it has the essential amino acids in the right ratios in the food that we consume. While all animal and most plant-based proteins do contain protein, not all proteins are created equal. They may differ in the amount of the essential amino acids. They also may differ in their digestibility and bioavailability. The amount required to maximize muscle protein synthesis depends upon the individual person and the quality of the protein consumed. High-quality protein is defined as a protein that contains all the essential amino acids in the ratios needed by the body while maintaining bioavailability and rapid digestibility. More specifically, the branched chain amino acids like leucine, isoleucine, and valine are of great importance to the muscle protein synthesis as we age, and dairy proteins meet these requirements. As I said, not all proteins are created equal. As you look at this chart, you can see that animal sources tend to be higher in the essential amino acids as a percentage of the total protein, and as compared to plant-based sources. And you can also see that dairy proteins have the highest levels. Scientific evidence continues to show that health benefits of higher protein diets are greater if the proteins consumed are of high quality and are complete. Okay, so this chart shows how much protein needs to be consumed by source. So upon consumption, the human body digests that protein into amino acids. Those amino acids then are critical to support of the muscle protein synthesis, as I mentioned before. Leucine, isoleucine, and valine specifically work with the muscle metabolism. And leucine has been shown to be the key amino acid in stimulating the initiation of muscle protein synthesis. So animal-based proteins generally contain more. Plant-based proteins are usually 6 to 8%. Animal proteins are 8.5 to 9. And dairy proteins are usually over 10%. So as you can see, that impacts the total volume of the amount that you would need to consume. So if you look at this picture, you can see here, there's a scoop of whey protein versus having to consume 4 cups of oatmeal to receive the same amount of leucine and essential amino acids. So it's really important to consider, especially when you're creating products for people that are maybe older and have a harder time consuming large volumes of food, or if you're looking for something that's really concentrated and you really want to pack a punch for a snack for somebody that's on the go. Form impacts performance. And I'm sure you've all experienced this. How the product behaves when you prepare it and cook it and consume it, and how it looks and tastes and feels impacts your experience. And that experience impacts consumer satisfaction. So, there was a benchmarking study done on functionality and sensory behavior, specifically to help understand the differences. The water holding capacity was studied, viscosity, heat stability at pH 7 and 3, emulsion stability and activity, and foam ability and stability. I'm going to cover a few key highlights from this study, but if you want more information about the study, the methodologies, and how it and the results themselves in more detail, you can go to thinkusadairy.org and find the new era for protein, why U.S. dairy delivers in a crowded protein marketplace. Sorry. So now let's talk about beverage. Oops, went too far. Okay. So now let's talk about beverages. They basically formulated the proteins. They were commercial proteins, and they formulated them into an aseptic beverage at 140 C for 6 seconds at 5% protein levels. If you see to the right, there's a legend, and that tells you the types of protein. At neutral pH, milk and whey proteins were more heat stable than plant-based proteins, making them ideal for thermally processed beverages, especially under aseptic conditions. Then, when they did the same thing at pH 3, in hot fill conditions at 82 degrees centigrade for 2 minutes, they also saw differences. And these differences are due to processing, solubility, and isoelectric points of the protein sources. All of those things factor into what can cause proteins to precipitate. And as you can see, the rice protein separated out immediately, the pea protein separated out overnight, and the beverages showed differences in color and opacity too. The milk whey protein, sometimes called native whey protein isolates, and potato protein exhibited more clarity than other proteins. So if you're looking to make a clear beverage, you might want to consider that type of protein. The proteins were also evaluated in bars. So they were formulated into a standard bar formulation of 40% carbohydrate, 30% protein, 30% fat. And they were kept for 30 days at 45 degrees C. As you can see from this diagram, there were differences between the proteins. Milk and plant-based proteins developed higher degrees of hardness in the bar versus the whey proteins, which remained softer. There was also variation between suppliers. So when you're looking at a specific type of protein, be sure to check your supplier and the consistency of that supplier if color is a big issue for the product that you're formulating. During the extended shelf life, the plant sources also tended to darken in color. So you may want to consider using a blend of proteins to address this issue in your bar or snack. Okay, so here are some of the common functionalities that proteins require by application. So, a general rule of thumb is the more complex the texture, the greater need for solubility and highly functional proteins will be required. So for example, emulsification and foaming might be really important for a baked good, for structure and for shelf stability. Yet water holding capacity and heat stability might be more important for a beverage. So having your end target in mind and thinking through what is going to be needed, not only in the product, but in your process, and ultimately how that product's going to be prepared or consumed is important. Once again, form impacts functionality. So be sure to screen and shelf life test your ingredients. Oops. Go back. Okay. They also looked at sensory characteristics. And in this, they took each protein source and diluted it to 10%. And then it was evaluated in duplicate in 12 sessions. Okay. There were flavor differences between the plant and dairy proteins. And so you should consider this early on when you're determining what you want your final taste profile to look like. But in general, the higher the concentration of protein, like 80+% protein products, require more flavor addition. Another thing to note is that many plant-based sources will absorb flavor during shelf life. So they're going to require even higher levels of flavor and masking agents in the finished product to ensure that it maintains the taste profile that you're looking for. Okay, on to usage and versatility. As I said, proteins are not equal and selection matters. So let's see how you might select some products because of what you're wanting to deliver. Okay, well, historically, plant proteins have been positioned in meat, beverage, and bakery products. And dairy proteins have been positioned more in beverage, frozen dessert, and nutrition bar formulations. But the number one attribute to every successful launch is taste. It really, truly matters. So think about that as you're developing your finished product, whether it has to do with flavor or mouthfeel or how it's being consumed. The other key thing to note is that protein can be delivered at breakfast, lunch, midday snack, dinner. There's all kinds of opportunities. And the US DEC has a lot of starter formulas to get you on your way at their thinkusadairy.org website. US dairies are very versatile and can deliver upon a wide range of these applications. So if you need help or you need a few examples to start with, please reach out because the resources are there to help you. So let's look at this chart. We'll start first with the high resistance yogurt in the corner. It has 6 grams of protein coming from whole milk and whey protein concentrate. And they add flavor and improve the texture. And specifically in this formulation, they're providing a stronger texture so that during packaging and transportation, that yogurt holds up the texture and mouthfeel that you're looking for. In addition to this, you could take this a step further if you wanted and create new textures for your products. So think about that as an option as well. The next one is a peach mango smoothie, and it has 11 grams of protein. It's coming from milk protein concentrate, and it would make a really great in-between meal snack or refreshment. The next one is the protein-powered flatbread. It has 19 grams of protein. It comes from yogurt and milk, which add flavor and texture. It also has permeate that provides surface browning, and you can add butter and cheese for additional flavor, turning this item specifically into a shareable snack or even a meal, depending upon how much you wanted to add to the product. The next one is the lentil power soup. I think about this one today because it's rainy and kind of cold, but it delivers 20 grams of protein, and it combines both plant and dairy protein ingredients. The micellar casein concentrate and the milk protein concentrate that are in it help provide high-quality protein, but they also provide creaminess and heat stability for the soup. And that's especially important when you're thermally processing a soup or a beverage. So you want to look to those types of ingredients. And then obviously, the permeate is once again used to reduce the need for added salt for flavor. The next one is the protein chiller. It's an excellent source of protein. It has 12 grams of protein, and because it uses whole milk, milk protein concentrate, and whey protein isolate, it also delivers 265 milligrams of calcium. So it provides a fun on-the-go snack as well as nutrition that people are looking for. And don't forget dessert. The last one is this high-protein cake. It delivers 5 grams of protein, and you can either use whey protein concentrate or isolates. The nice thing about this formulation is you do get some nutrition into your dessert, but it also allows for egg replacement in your formulation, which may allow you some cost reduction or some flexibility depending upon supply chain issues. Okay, the next one is supply security. Anyone that's launched a new product, the last thing you want to hear is when you go to launch is, well, I can't get the product. So you want an ample, consistent, and quality product for your new product because it saves you a lot of headaches later. So where does the U.S. milk production stand? If you look at the total U.S. milk production in 2021, it increased 1.3%. And it also, the annual total milk production has increased steadily since 2012, so the last 10 years, 12.8%. So there's ample supply and it's continuing to grow. Additionally, in 2021, the U.S. dairy export volume set a new record high of 2.69 million metric tons, showing that the industry is dedicated to serving overseas markets and converting many products for ample supply. Plant sources continue to expand operationally, and overall supply, excluding soy, is still somewhat limited. So take this into consideration and make sure you benchmark some of these new ingredients along the way, because if it's still in early stages, the functionality of your products may change. The U.S. dairy industry is also committed to quality and safety. In 2016, they underwent a voluntarily adopted program to enhance the dairy product traceability practices to ensure the safety from farm to fork. So that gives you an extra measure of security that when you work with a U.S. supplier, that if in the event there is something that goes terribly wrong, they'll be able to be your partner and assist you. This dedication also spills over into on-farm practices. The U.S. dairy farmers themselves have also adopted a voluntary and monitored set of ISO-compliant on-farm practices called Farmers Assuring Responsible Management. And basically it focuses on best-in-class animal care programs to ensure safety and welfare, and they actually have auditors that go out onto farms and continue to monitor the practices. So once again, trying to do the best job of raising their animals. The next one is sustainably produced. Unlike many other sources, the U.S. dairy industry conducted scientifically documented life cycle assessments to benchmark where they were so that they can continue to improve when it comes to sustainability. This has been happening since 2012, and they've continued to research and adopt new technologies to further reduce their impact on the environment. Since that time, you can see these results. There's been a 10% increase in milk production. So there's fewer cows producing more milk. They're also showing that happy cows produce more milk. And so they continue to research feeding regimes, genetics, housing, and herd health in order to continue to implement best practices to ensure their cows are well cared for and that the production is done in the most sustainable way possible. And this is also shown by U.S. milk production per cow is nearly 5 times the global average. Another way that they do this is because milk is 80% water, they continue to use water membrane filtration to concentrate the ingredients, but also the water can be reclaimed and reused up to 5 or 6 times. So if you look at this chart on the left-hand side, you can see it can be used in plant, it can be used in landscaping, washing trucks, it can be used many times over. Same thing on the farm. There's also co-product streams that can be dried out. So as we were talking about earlier, the permeate can be dried. The side streams can be dried into high-quality ingredients and used in food products. The plant protein processing typically requires water addition to solubilize the protein. And these streams are not as well characterized. So short term, these inefficiencies cause lower yields and potentially higher costs for some sources. U.S. dairy farmers continue to innovate, and they're good stewards. So since 2017, they've used 30% less water, 21% less land, and 19% fewer greenhouse gases. And they're only contributing to 2% of the world global greenhouse gas emissions versus 28.9% for transportation. But their commitment goes further than that. They are committed to becoming carbon neutral by 2050, continuing to optimize water usage, and improving water quality by utilizing the optimization of manure and nutrients for the soil and the environment. And they continue to benchmark this and report this out every 5 years. Oops, went too far. There. So we know today's consumers demand more. They want complete nutrition for wellness and for better health. They want visual appeal because that's an indication of quality. They want global taste profiles that they can discover. They want textual experiences to delight their taste buds. Clean labels are important, making sure they're simple and easy to understand. They want sustainably produced ingredients for a better planet. And last but not least, they want consistent and high-quality ingredients that they can trust to feed to their families. The U.S. dairy industry continues to be committed to delivering these products and ingredients to service this need and this demand. I hope from today's presentation you have a better understanding of proteins and their importance on nourishment and nutrition, and a better understanding about proteins and how processing impacts their solubility and their functionality, and ultimately your finished food or beverage product. The U.S. industry offers a broad portfolio of ingredients, and it has staff on hand and even supplier members here at this show that can help answer questions. So please stop by booth 34. I'll be there as well. Answer your questions. There's tons of information and tools at your disposal and people and resources to help you find what you need. So please join us, and we're happy to assist in any way we can. And thank you much for your time today and your attention. Oops. Okay. Okay, I guess we'll take questions so you can. didn't come through for me. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Buenas tardes. La pregunta sería la diferencia fundamental en la asimilación de la proteína de origen lácteo y de origen vegetal en las formulaciones.
It depends upon the formulation, first of all, because they function differently. It depends upon the nutritional targets for your finished product. So dairy ingredients typically not only provide protein, but also other minerals. So that would play an impact on how much you use. And then the quality of the protein and the level of the essential amino acids that you need to provide a complete protein for people to consume would be different, and it would impact the amount based upon the quality of the protein.
La proteína de origen vegetal junto con una proteína láctea en un alimento, ¿cuál sería el valor nutricional biológico en ese caso? Gracias.
You would have to, if you were doing them together, you would have to consider each product separately to come up with the overall quality. If you were blending them together from a functionality perspective, you would also have to be careful because of those differences in those processing steps can impact the formula and how they react to things like minerals and heating and acids and different things in your final formulation. You would also need to be sure of how the finished product quality is, like the levels of denaturation too.
Hay una diferencia entre la termorresistencia de las proteínas vegetales y animales, es decir, ¿me sirven para cualquier tipo de proceso o debo tener como algún control sobre las temperaturas de alguna proteína en específico o cuál es como la más sensible a la temperatura?
Typically, the plant will be more sensitive depending upon what it is. It also depends upon the finished formula because, like I said, the mineral content can impact your finish. If it's a beverage, it can impact your finished product as it's being thermally processed. But in general, the milk proteins have more thermal stability, especially when you get to more retort style products and even aseptic. What? Done? Okay. Thank you.